Okay, so then I think we have everyone. I'm assuming Mr. Watkins will not be here either.
That is correct, as far as we know.
Okay, so it's 3 o'clock right now. Just a reminder to everyone. Any specific requests to go to a certain
So this is Richard Six, Architectural Board of Review Vice Chair. I'll open up the Architectural Board of Review for June 15th, 2020. First item on the agenda is roll call.
Thank you. This is Mary, Commission Secretary. I will take roll call. We have Vice Chair Six.
Here.
Board Member Black.
Here.
Board Member Cunningham.
Here.
Board Member Olson.
Here.
And Board Member Whalen.
Here.
So then Chair Moore and Board Member Watkins are absent.
Thank you, Mary. So first item of general business is public comment. Any member of the public may address the board up to 2 minutes on any subject within the jurisdiction that is not scheduled on this agenda for a public discussion. Do we have anybody from the public?
Mr. Vice Chair, we do have Ms. Scott in the audience, and I believe she would like to speak. She's having some technical difficulties, however, so if you could just give staff a minute to work with her to resolve this issue. All right, I just sent her the audio pin, so she should be.
Okay, so I think that was the problem. Thank you. So yes, she has to enter an audio pin number before she can hear any sound. But I don't know when she will be able to update it. Matthew, you said you sent her the audio pin?
Yeah, I'm sending her a message saying that she needs to input it.
Okay.
I've sent her an audio pin again. Unfortunately, she says she's gonna have to hang up. So I don't know. We should wait maybe a couple more seconds. See if we can get this figured out. Yes, Mr. Chair. I'm sorry?
Excuse me, you get it?
I believe one of the participants is speaking. He's been muted since. So what were you saying, Vice Chair?
Could we perhaps, if she figures out her technical difficulties, give her an opportunity in between one of our items?
Yes, public comment can happen at any time. So we can continue and then reopen it once we get audio on Scott.
Okay, very good. We'll do that.
Thank you.
With our first opportunity for public comment, hearing no other member, we will close the public part of that
Mr.
mute.
Six, pardon my interruption. It looks like she does have audio capability now. So could we try it just to expedite the process?
Absolutely, we'll open
Okay.
it up public
Okay.
question again.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry about that. And Ms. Scott, I have unmuted you and it looks like your audio is green. So could you test it, please?
Hi, can you hear me?
Okay, there you go. Okay, you have 2 minutes to speak on general items. Thank you.
Good afternoon, board members. I want to remind you about something in your ABR guidelines, which talks about how you are actually supposed to be conducting, reviews after finals. Review after finals actually require a substantial conformance determination in many cases, because this is talking about more than just about a few details on the side of a building. You might be talking about the reconfiguration of an entire project, or where a parking lot might be on the side of a building, etc. It actually states that you need to make a substantial conformance determination, which is a discretionary review. And discretionary reviews actually need to be noticed, and they must say substantial conformance determination. The other thing that I'm also noticing in some of your projects is that when you are supposed to be looking at something like landscape design, we're forgetting about the lighting, which is really important and required in your ABR guidelines. And lighting, as an example, is really important for things like parking lots. For instance, a parking lot, if it doesn't have enough light, how are people going to find their cars or navigate at night? Are they going to use flashlights? It's really important that we go back to the basics with the ABR guidelines and really start looking at the description of projects, because I think we are right now not paying attention to what's required under your ABR guidelines, what you are responsible for looking at, and what staff is responsible for noticing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. Is there anybody else that?
Mr. Six, that is the last speaker for general public comment.
And Matthew, did we not get a? Oh, that's not on another issue. Thanks. Okay, so with that, I will close the public portion, general public comments portion of the meeting, and go to approval of the minutes for the full board on June 1st, 2020. Does anybody have a motion to approve those minutes?
I so move.
Mr. Olson, seconded.
I'll second.
Okay, Bob. Mr. Cunningham, I have one small comment on item 1, 1108 Olive Street, under the motion number 2. We asked the applicant to change the window specification to provide a light aluminum clad. I don't think we know what we mean by light, so I would strike the word light. Does anybody recall what the light description was referring to?
No, I can't remember.
Okay, so in order to avoid confusion, I recommend that the maker of the motion slash that word. Is that okay with the maker?
I believe you were the maker, Mr. Vice Chair.
No, the make approval.
Oh, gotcha.
That would be Mr. Olson. Are you
Yeah.
okay with that change, Mr. Olson?
Yes.
And the seconder?
Yes.
All right, with that, we have a motion on the floor.
Okay, this is Mary. I will take roll call. We have Vice Chair 6,
Aye.
Board Member Black,
Aye.
Board Member Cunningham,
Aye.
Board Member Olson,
Aye.
and Board Member Whalen.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to the approval of consent calendar for June 8th and June 15th.
Are we taking them as a group of two?
Let's just do the 8th first.
Move that we approve. Second.
First, let's go through the motion. So item A, 300 West Pueblo was given project design and final approval with comments. Item B, 2015 State Street was given project design approval and final approval with comments. And item C, 424 Port Lamar Drive was given project design approval with comments. And 101 South Canada was given approval of its review after final with condition.
All right. So you want to repeat those motion in the second, please?
I'll move that we approve. Second.
Second, thank you, Cunningham and Olson. So we have a motion on the floor.
This is Mary. I will take roll call. Vice Chair 6,
Aye.
Board Member Black,
Aye.
Board Member Cunningham,
Aye.
Board Member Olson,
Aye.
and Board Member Whalen.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to announcements, requests by applicants for continuous and withdrawals, future agenda items and appeals.
Mr. Vice Chair, if you don't mind, we still have the 15th, today's consent agenda that we do need to ratify.
Oh, excuse me.
I'll move that we approve.
Yes, item A, 37 West Calle Loreles was given final approval with comment conditions. I apologize.
I have a first from Cunningham. Do I have a second?
Olson, yes.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor.
Right, this is Mary. I will take roll call. Vice Chair 6,
Aye.
Board Member Black,
Aye.
Board Member Cunningham,
Aye.
Board Member Olson,
Aye.
and Board Member Whalen.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes.
And moving on now to announcements, requests by applicants for continuances and withdrawals, future addenda items and appeals.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I have one announcement today, and that is that Tava Ostringer from the City Attorney's Office will not be able to join us today. And actually, I have another one, and that is that Chair Moore will be out for the meeting.
Excuse me?
Chair Moore will be out from the meeting today.
Yeah, okay, thank you. And I don't think any of our subcommittees are active at this point. Anybody have any news?
I have a question of staff. This is Leon.
Yes, Mr. Olson?
This is for Matthew. At our last meeting, we had a short discussion about the objective design standards, which I had a couple of questions. You shortened that conversation significantly, saying it wasn't agendized. We could therefore not discuss it. And it seems to me that there are questions about the process and about what's happening with that. It's a significant item for the Architectural Review Board. And I would like to have it agendized so that we might ask some questions.
That's an excellent point, Mr. Olson. I am sending an email now to Ms. Deisty, who was the planner who came with that item before, as well as her supervisor, and Irma Nzweta as the design review supervisor, and we will get this back on the agenda for you to ask your questions. I don't believe that that was initially part of the plan, but we can accommodate that as a request, absolutely.
All right, thank you, Matt. Yes,
Richard?
Bob.
I need to announce that I'm conflicted on item 3 of our agenda due to contractual arrangement with the property owners. So I'll be leaving the meeting after item 2.
All right, thank you, Bob. I think we still have a quorum then. Okay, that's finished with general. We'll move on to the first item. So item number 1 is 335 East Gutierrez for final approval. This is a proposal for a new commercial structure. Project consists of demolition of an existing 1,914 square foot damaged retail building and an existing 1,132 square foot storage building, as well as construction of a new 2,858 square foot warehouse building. An existing 1,125 square foot storage building is proposed to remain. 3 parking spaces are also provided. Project requires development plan approval, findings pursuant to the city's growth management program. Project will abate violations identified in enforcement case ENF 2017-01280. Final approval is requested. Project requires substantial conformance with the plans granted project design on November 4th, 2019. I see that our applicant is, so identify yourself and your presentation, please. Peter, you're on mute.
Yeah, Mr. Allen, you have to unmute yourself using the microphone icon. And I'll send you an unmute request as well. So if you just accept that, there you go.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Okay, life is good. Yeah, thank you, board members. I'm Pete Allen, architect for the project, and with me today is Chuck McClure, our landscape architect. As Richard said, we received our project design approval last November, and we're here with some of the updates and some changes we've made to the plans since you guys gave it the project design approval. Our real goal here today is to get final and to get in the building department is what we're really like to do. If you guys have some additional concerns, we're happy to address them, but we'd like to do that while we're in the building department. So with that, if we can go to page number 3, which is the site plan. Thank you. The biggest change on this plan in the lower right of the site is we had to add a retention basin. We used to have a larger area of permeable paving, but in working with the stormwater management people, we were encouraged to go to this route. So we have increased the landscaping on the project and added a couple of trees, as you can see. In addition, up along Laguna Street, the city actually did some work in the interim along the street and actually added some planters that we were proposing. So that's a good thing. We used to have green screens along 3 green screens along the face of the building facing Laguna Street. I didn't really like those. So we've made some revisions. Now we have 7 longer planters along that wall of the building, and Chuck will talk to you about the landscaping that we want to put in there. In addition, we still have some permeable paving on the northwest side of the building. It's in a charcoal color and a herringbone pattern, and I did submit some catalog cuts on that stuff. If we can then go to sheet number 7. The reflected ceiling plan, with just to show here, we have 2 overhangs on the southwest side of the building, and we just have downlights in those. And so that's what this shows. And if we can go to the next sheet, number 8, on the elevations, pretty much what you saw previously. We do have pilasters you can see on the side of those windows. I added taper to those. You can see that as it goes around the corner of the building, give it a little bit more interest. On the southeast elevation down the bottom, you can see where we have the gate. There you go. Going to an exposed block just for the columns there, just to break up some of the monotony that it was starting to look like to me. In addition, we've got a fire bell detail on there as well. Then we go to the next sheet, sheet number 9. There we go. Again, pretty much what you saw previously, with the exception that the columns on the southwest elevation there would just be an exposed block and a scored 8x8 pattern. On the northwest elevation, we have a couple of downlights in the wall. You can see right in the middle there. There you go, right there. And that's the extent of the exterior lighting on the building. There's a window we added to that wall in the restroom, so we don't have any mechanical ventilation. And then at the trash enclosure, going to an exposed block, play around with the block pattern to give it some more interest. Off to the next sheet, number 10. These are the wall sections, and just to show you section D, the one in the middle, the depth of the recess at those windows. We have a nice, good, deep shadow line at those guys. The height of the building has remained the same. We haven't changed any of that. On the next sheet, more wall sections. Section E shows a section through that overhang. We have to get our water off the top, the upper roof, down onto this lower roof, and then out into the parking lot to comply with our stormwater management stuff. We can't put it underground or anything. So that's the purpose of that. And section F shows you the depth of the window at the restroom. Now off to sheet number 13. Lower right hand corner just shows the gate and the fence along Gutierrez Street. It's steel painted. We'll use a 4-inch by 4-inch heavy duty wire for the gate itself in the middle. And if you look on the upper left side of the sheet, details 8, 9, and 10 just shows how the gate's going to go through the columns. That's the gate detail. If we go to sheet number 15, these are some exterior details. What's important on this is just to show that we're wrapping the plaster over the top of the parapet. We don't have a cap, a metal cap in all conditions. And detail number 2 shows just a little bit of detail we added to the overhangs. And if we go to the next sheet, which is 16, yeah, just some additional details. So number 6 is that large opening into the warehouse. Added some detail on the top of that and shows our fire barrel detail. So those are the changes and updates and clarifications we made on the plan since you guys saw it last. And I'll let Chuck talk a little bit now about the planning plan. That's sheet number 23.
Okay, like Pete said, the only thing that's different, well, there's 2 things that are different. This down here in the lower right-hand corner is the retention pond, and I've got Junkins Patents in Mass. And then at the corner of Laguna and Gutierrez, there's an existing queen palm. I'm adding 2 more. And so when you're coming down Gutierrez, you'll see that queen cluster. And then as you move along Gutierrez, then you'll come to the golden medallion tree. And then you'll jump back to 2 queen palms coming out of the retention pond. And that's kind of the main, the difference that you'll see from today to the new condition. On the street trees, there's only 1 new additional one on Laguna. And then along this north part of the building here, we've got an extremely narrow little 4 or 6-inch planter between the sidewalk and the sidewalk. And I'm proposing equisetum or horsetail. And it's not on the drought tolerant list, but I'm asking if maybe we could have a waiver. My second choice was English ivy, but I'm afraid the English ivy is going to get out. It's going to break out of the niche.
and that it's going to look kind of unkempt if we don't have good maintenance. And I'm not sure, well, oftentimes on commercial projects, well, all projects, we don't have good maintenance. So I was wondering if Bob and David could have a think about that. And that's all.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. Was there, before we finish your presentation, was there a color board?
I brought that last time, and the board, yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
great.
So it wasn't in digital format last time, in November last year. So
okay,
but the board found the colors acceptable.
Okay, thank you. So with that ending the presentation, we'll open the meeting up to public comment to see if is there anybody from the public who wishes to speak on this item?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Six. If you wish to speak on this item, you raise your hand using the hand icon, and I will call on you, and you'll have 2 minutes to speak. Anna Marie Gott, I've just unmuted you, and you now have 2 minutes whenever you're ready. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, board members. I just want to remind everyone about a few things with this project. The first was really our design guidelines, which I really feel were not followed with regards to the type of architecture for this building. If you were to drive down this street a few years ago, you would have seen at the corner 4 buildings, all of which were plaster, some of which actually were Spanish design. And now, instead of 4 buildings that resemble Spanish design architecture, we now have a big metal building now on one of the corners, right at an exit as you enter into Santa Barbara. So I really don't feel our design guidelines were followed when we are really looking at trying to upgrade our projects in our areas in town and to have them match our what we want, which is more Spanish and Mediterranean throughout the city, and designs that are actually going to be beneficial for the neighborhood. The next issue that I heard was the last person who did a presentation was talking about a waiver of some sort. There is no waiver that has been noticed for this meeting. The next thing is the parking lot. I am still going to go back to one of my original comments on this parking lot, which is, 1, the storage building is being used as a kitchen, therefore you need more parking for that building. 2, the current location of all of the parking is extraordinarily far away from the building itself. Since we now have this large storm drain, stormwater management area that's draining for all of the water on the property, I think it's time now to move those parking places right next to it, because right now they are so far away, especially with
wrap
Thank
up.
you. All right, so.
Mr. Six, that is the last person who wished to speak on the item and received written comment.
And I think we all received written comments from Ms. Scott also, correct?
I believe those are correct. Yeah, so there are no written comments on this item.
All right, so with that, we'll close public comment and bring it back to the board. Can you, everybody, applicants turn their videos off so we can have space for our board. Thank you. Peter, can you turn video off? Thank you. So we'll start with Dennis.
Well, this is a first to be first. I'm at somewhat of a disadvantage since this project first came before the board before I was a member. A quick question for staff. Is this I understand that it came in November. Were there previous visits before November? Or
there were, Mr. Whalen. Yeah, so this was a project, I believe it came twice before it got PDA. we're here at final approval. So any members who did not have a chance to review the entire record on this, you are able to ask questions, but you will not be able to vote or provide comment. You'll have to abstain. So, but that's just in case you haven't. If you have, that's great, wonderful.
Well, could you repeat that again, Matthew? The last two parts, I can provide comments but not vote?
You can ask questions. You cannot, the way it's set up is you can't provide your comments, and you will have to abstain at the vote.
All right, then.
That's what the guidelines say.
Then I have no questions. I should just move on.
Yeah. Sorry.
Thank you, Dennis. Thank you, Dennis. David?
Minor questions for the landscape architect. That little planter at the base of the building along, I guess, along the sidewalk on Laguna, you indicated that that planter was approximately 4 to 6 inches. Did I hear you right?
Yep, maybe Pete could chime in exactly what it is, but it's very small.
Yeah. Okay.
And oftentimes the concrete contractor lets it slough. They're often very troublesome, the tiny little planters like that.
It's actually, David, it's 8 inches.
8 inches. Okay.
Yeah.
But you've got a foundation and you've got sidewalk.
No, I made sure that we have no foundation underneath it.
Okay. And then the other question was on your irrigation plan. I see what's designated as your backflow preventer. Is it at that location?
Yeah, could we go to that sheet? It's L2, or maybe Pete's got it categorized in a
It's the
different
next,
number.
it's the next sheet.
24, I think.
You know, that's there's some existing valving there, and that's why the building was torn down, but it seemed like that we knew that the water was coming on site in that location, and I've got the backflow preventer there, and it's as far away from the sidewalk as I can get it, and it is screened.
Well, maybe I'll limit this to comments, but could you just tell me what those plants are? Because it looked as though it was trailing lantana, and I sort of questioned whether that would be high enough to actually screen a backflow preventer, but.
Okay, could we go to the planting plan?
Yeah. If I'm looking at it in the right place.
Right, you're right. It could be tucked behind those Raffulepis. I understand the point.
Anyway, it's just a little heads up, but
okay.
That was my only questions. Thanks.
All right, thank you, David. Bob?
Thank you. Let's see. Try to separate my questions from comments. Okay, where David was just referring the lantana around the irrigation equipment. Why have you spec'd gravel as the ground cover there, Chuck?
Well, I just think that when I see plants that come out to a sidewalk or a hardscape, the gardeners often cut it off, and you end up looking at a bunch of sticks, and then it tends to make the plant rise vertically. So I was just going to use 4 kind of close to the palm so that they could lengthen out without having to be cut heavily. And then since that's the case, I thought a tan gravel would be would kind of serve as the final ground cover.
Okay, thank you. And then could we go to the building elevations, please? And I have a question for Pete. Okay, this works at the, I can't read it because it's small on my monitor here. I think it says northwest elevation. Pete, you've got a wall, a CMU wall connected to the building with a gate, and on one side of the gate you've got a CMU column, and on the other side you have a plaster column. And it seems, I don't know, it seems a little strange to me. I think you've got a similar situation on the other side. Is there any particular reason you wouldn't want to go to a plaster column on both sides of that gate to give it some balance, or is this a design decision that you made because you like the look of it, which I'm not criticizing, I'm just asking?
Yeah, it's if you look at on the upper part of the sheet, Bob, on the southwest elevation. So you're looking there on the left corner there. Where
Yes.
it comes around. It seems to me to have, and we're going to have the trash enclosure kind of in front of that. I can see your point to that, and same thing on the other elevation. Just seemed to me it's an interesting combination of materials and form, and kind of fun, to be honest with you.
Okay. And then one final question. I've spoken to the urban forest superintendent / city arborist about the tree walls on Laguna Street, and he would appreciate it if you could enlarge the one tree wall that you're already proposing to remove some lifted concrete. If you could balance that by removing a similarly sized panel of concrete on the north side of that planter. These tree pockets are in pavement. There is no parking along that curb. And the more open ground we have around the street trees, the happier the trees will be, the healthier.
So we'd have 3 longer planters. That's fine. Yeah. You can do
Okay. Great. That's all my questions. Thank you. Oh, no, I do have one more question. For Chuck.
Yes.
You've specified agapanthus alongside the driveway off of Gutierrez Street. And
Right.
I'm wondering whether you feel strongly that that's the most appropriate plant for that location, given the potential beating that it might take from pedestrian activity around that spot.
Well, I'm open to suggestion. I just think that that plant's quite tough, and that was the thinking, that it's pretty hard to kill. I don't know, but I'm happy to hear any suggestion you might have.
Okay, well, I'll withhold the suggestion for the comment period. Thank you.
All right.
I'm done.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Leon?
No questions.
Right, thank you, Leon. Questions. So Pete, the newly exposed CMU, is that going to be just gray CMU?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. And just a point of clarification, point for your drawing accuracies. I noticed that the electric plan does not include and power the canopy, 6 canopy lights on the exterior. You might want to catch that. Do we have a photo, or what is you said along Gutierrez there is an existing chain link fence in front of the new retention basin, chain link turns to the gate wall. So that return is new, but is the existing, what's the condition and look of the existing chain link fence along the property line?
Looks fine. It's in good shape. It's got plants growing on it, and
Does it have slats, or is
sorry?
The ligustrum that's existing pushes through it, and you really don't get a sense of the fence.
okay, so it's well landscaped?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. And then are you going to you're painting the gate?
I think so, yeah.
And that would be the accent color?
The accent color, exactly.
Okay. And then these flood-proof openings, you said there are 2, are they, can we go to the elevations, please?
It'd be the sheet before this one. Yeah, those three flood openings. This is a warehouse, and we're in the flood
Yeah.
zone, so we need to let water flow through the building. So
Yeah.
those are just openings.
So what are the size of those? They look,
It's 2 blocks, so it's 16 by 16.
okay, very good. I get it. Okay, and just on the Gutierrez elevation.
It'll be on the next sheet.
Yeah.
There you go. No, I'm sorry. Go back.
So was there a definite functional choice to have a solid steel door at this street entry rather than, well, what was your, rather than some continuing the nice decorative fencing material to make kind of a door / gate and that? Is there some functional thinking on that?
No, the only function thinking really behind the door was security. This place gets broken into a lot, so that's kind of where I was coming from initially. But it's got the gate right next to it, Richard. So that might be worthwhile taking a look at, see if that brings some more interest to the.
Well, that leads into my comments, but thank you for that.
Okay.
So we'll start with comments in the same order. I guess, Dennis, you have duct tape over your mouth, so we'll go to David.
Okay. Regarding that little 8-inch planter along Laguna Street, in my opinion, I think that's too small for a real planter, especially one that may not get much maintenance at all. So, I mean, I wouldn't have a problem with just eliminating it altogether, but that's your choice, of course. And then, just, I want you to feel comfortable with screening that backflow and whether or not the trailing lantana is going to be adequate to the task. Those are the only comments I had.
Okay, thank you, David. Bob?
Okay. With regard to that 8-inch wide planter, unfortunately, Chuck, I think you were alluding to the possibility that David and I could offer you some assistance with getting a waiver on the use of a high water plant or a medium water plant. We don't have that authority or flexibility. So you'll need to deal with water resources on that, and good luck. I would suggest if you don't have confidence in the maintenance, even though I would love to see English ivy growing up this building, if you don't have confidence that maintenance will take care of that properly and have it done the way you and Pete believe it should be done, then I would say, skip that altogether. I think David makes a good point that it's an awfully narrow planter, and without something really tough and shade tolerant and drought tolerant in that location, maybe you ought to just dispense with that altogether. So that's my opinion on that. I think at the backflow preventer, I think you should consider some taller plants, and rather than go with the gravel, because again, you're not confident in the maintenance with regard to the lantana, pick something that is, let's say, maintenance proof. Some kind of maybe strap leaf plant that can't be sheared or edged in a vertical pattern along the edge of the sidewalk. And I think that rather than rely on gravel as a ground cover, I think it's much more sustainable to have an actual wood mulch for the plantings. This one location with gravel seems to me to be, kind of giving up on maintenance, and I think you should rethink that. With regard to the agapanthus, I disagree that it's a tough plant. I love the plant, but I think growing next to a walkway, first of all, you're going to have the flower heads drooping over the pathway and getting kicked by folks walking by, and maybe even tripping people walking by. So I would reconsider that, and maybe maybe a Dietes, a fortnight lily or Dianella would be a better choice. Finally, with regard to the planting that you're proposing in the Laguna Street tree wells, I think you'll have problems getting, digging holes to accommodate the Carissa that you're specifying in those tree wells that are pretty substantially occupied by surface roots. I think maybe you might want to consider something like something that you can get out of a 4-inch pot, like a carapia, that might cover the planters pretty nicely without having to really find root space for the small plants. I just think you're going to have no success or very little success even installing the Carissa, let alone encouraging it to grow when it's competing with the roots.
Bob, where is that, Bob? Where is that located on the plan, the Carissa?
On the planting plan, got to go to the planting plan. He has Carissa shown in the tree wells along Laguna Street at the back of the curb.
I get it. Okay, thank you.
So that's it. I think this is a very nice plan, in spite of my picking it apart. I think it's going to be nice. I like the building. I do think it's appropriate for the neighborhood. We went through that when we gave this PDA. It's a nice, massive plaster building. I don't see any metal anywhere on it unless I'm mistaken. And again, I like the project. I just think it needs a few little tweaks in the landscaping. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Leon?
I agree. I think it's a good project. It's appropriate for the neighborhood. I think it's ready to proceed. I have only one comment. I think the CMU is a good idea. It adds interesting detail. I think I would like it better if it was colored. It was not just concrete gray CMUs. That's all my comments.
Thank you, Leon. I will defer to the landscapers on their comments, and I think it's a good project and appropriate for the neighborhood. This is an eclectic neighborhood. A lot of industrial buildings. This is a very upgrade from industrial. I think the first time we saw it, we had a lot more of this exposed concrete. So we have gone toward a more plaster building that fits also with the more traditional buildings in the area. So I think it's a very good project. The only thing that I'm a little disappointed in is the solid steel door at the entry. I would hope that it's a little disappointing. It would be great if you could do a little creative design and have that same materials as your gate be framed and designed such that it could be also a swinging gate and whatever you needed to do to customize the design so security wasn't an issue. I think that would be a great improvement to, because this is the point of entry for pedestrian. So that would be my comment. So is anybody prepared to make a motion?
Well, I have a question. with regard to the architecture, is everybody satisfied with it as it's presented? Raise of hands, show of hands.
Except for the gate.
Okay, do we, I have, as I mentioned, I've got some issues with the landscape design. I would like to know, I guess, from the applicant, whether or not they're willing to revisit the gate and revisit the landscape. And I would then make a motion for this to be continued to the consent calendar where we could approve it.
You're on the board or
No,
you're submitting?
Yeah, me and an architect submitted a project. And
Is somebody talking?
I'm sorry about that. It looks like someone accidentally unmuted themselves, so I went ahead and muted them. So sorry about the interruption.
Okay. So if I can hear from Pete and Chuck regarding the issues that have been brought up, you know, I'd like to either approve this with conditions or continue to the consent calendar for the few minor issues to be resolved next week. May we hear from the applicants?
I can make my revisions very easily.
There you go.
Pete, you're muted or something.
Chuck, you are unmuted currently if you wish to respond.
I can make my revisions within, you know, by the end of the week. So I'm very easily revised.
I think we need to hear from Pete because he wants to get in the building department.
And also
Pete,
to clarify,
you are
we would.
Okay, I'm back.
Okay.
Yeah, what I'd like to see is to get final approval. We'll go back to consent. We'll address the door on Gutierrez. We'll address the landscaping that concerns you guys have, but we can get the clock ticking at the building department. That'd be great.
Bob, you're muted again.
So question of staff, may we grant final approval?
With minor changes.
I did not mute myself.
Yes, so you can grant final approval with minor changes to be reviewed at review after final. So, sorry, webcam request. Yes, here I am. So this project can receive final if the review after final changes are minor and don't have a significant impact on the design. And the deadline for them to get on for the following week would be Wednesday afternoon for plans.
Peter, can you do that?
Well, I'd like to just get in the building department and take some time to revise our plans. Can we do that?
Yeah, so could we have, Bob, perhaps the solution is to have an indefinite continuance to consent, give it final for him to get into the building department, then give him a little time to make his minor revisions that would be reviewed at consent.
Matthew, process-wise, is that acceptable?
Yes, it is, Mr. Chair and board member.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to make a motion for final approval then with the applicant to return on consent at a date to be determined with a different design for the entry gate. And Richard, specifically, does that need to be a transparent entry gate?
Let's just put a more upgrade than a steel door.
Okay. As stated then, with the landscape architect to revisit the choice of Carissa in the tree planters on Laguna Street, the choice of antenna adjacent to the irrigation system control, the choice of agapanthus along the pedestrian entry path. And I would suggest, well, I think I've already made suggestions for that. And for the southernmost of the tree wells on Laguna Street to be expanded on both sides of the tree. I believe that's it.
Second.
Seconded by Leon. Any discussion?
Under discussion, Bob, what about the little 8-inch strip of planting along the sidewalk there? Do we want to give direction or leave that to the landscape architect?
I think I'd leave it to the designers. If you know, if Pete and Chuck believe it's a sustainable planting, then they need to come up with a suitable low water using plant that will work in that location.
Okay, the motion stands and is, Leon, did you second it?
I did.
Yes. Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. Mary?
This is Mary, Commission Secretary. I will take roll call. Vice Chair Six,
Yes.
Board Member Black,
Yes.
Board Member Cunningham,
Yes.
Board Member Olson,
Yes.
and Board Member Whalen.
Abstain.
Okay, motion passes.
Thank you, Mary. Good project, Pete.
Yeah, very nice.
And Chuck. So we'll move on to item 2. Item 2, 3311 McCaw Avenue project design and final approval. This is a proposal for a facade remodel for the Gelsons in Loretto Plaza. Project entails creating a new western entrance with detailing to match the existing eastern entrance. The maximum height of the new entrance will increase from 20 foot 2 inches to 26 8 inches. Project also includes new outdoor seating. No increase in floor area is proposed. Project design and final approval is requested. Project requires compliance with project compatibility analysis and the following guidelines: Upper State Street design guidelines, outdoor lighting design guidelines. This project was last reviewed on February 10th, 2020. Now I see that our applicant is here. If you would like to show us what, Matthew, do we have comments from last time that might help our applicant organize her comments, her presentation?
And Mr. Six, while Matthew's pulling that up, I just want to let you know that we also have Steve Fort, applicant, on the line with Ms. Jacinta Tian for the presentation, but he does not have a webcam.
Okay.
Hi, Richard.
Hi, Steve. Do you want to speak before Jacinta? Jacinta?
No,
No.
I think you covered it. We're here for PDA and final, and I think Jacinta is just going to dive into addressing your minute comments there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I thought it'd be best to just go through our plans, our drawing set, instead of jumping around from sheet to sheet and addressing your comments, if that's okay with you guys.
Yes.
So if we could go on to page 2 here. We've got our site plan, just to refresh everyone's memory, because I think the last time we met was back in February. This is for an expansion of Gelson's Market to the existing adjacent space. And this project specifically is looking at the facade remodel of that space. It was formerly a Chase Bank. We can move on to the next page. And here we have the floor plans, just for reference. And if you can look at the bottom right of the page, that's where our scope of work mostly focused. And on this plan, we've added, we've showed the exterior lighting to be added, the outdoor seating, and the railings. The furniture for the seating match what's existing at Gelson's, and same with the railings, the construction and finishes of those railings. I don't believe we previously had any comments regarding the outdoor seating, the railings, or the lighting specs. Those are all to match what's existing at Gelson's. We can go to the next page. And this is the roof plan. So we're showing on the right side the new roof plan, and on the left the demo roof plan. One of the concerns that was raised in the last meeting was the mechanical units on the roof and what would be visible. So we're here showing on the left side all the existing units that are actually going to be removed. There's one exhaust fan that'll be relocated to the Gelson side, but all the sort of dashed boxes you see there, those are existing rooftop units that'll be removed. On the right side, we're showing the one new unit that'll be up on the roof. And based off of some cross sections we did of the building and the site, which are later in the drawing set, it became evident to us that we will need to go ahead and add a mechanical screen. Parts of it will be visible from the low parapet. So we went ahead and added a mechanical screen there. Again, the construction and the finishes of that will match what's already up at Gelson. And then the other area of concern was the return of the parapet. I think it was expressed that we needed to create a deeper return on the parapet, so it's not just a facade, but it would have some depth and add a little dimensionality to the parapet. And so you can see right there, we are bringing the parapet back 12 feet 7 inches, and it'll match it's to the line with the existing parapet return on the Gelson side. And if we can move on to the next page. Here you see the exterior elevations. Up top is what's existing, and at the bottom, that'll be our proposed elevation. Not much has changed in these elevations from our last meeting. One of the concerns was the cornice, and I think there was general consensus that we needed to sort of give it a more of a presence and to create a better hierarchy between the cornice of the high parapet and the low parapet there, and that is indeed what we went ahead and did. The higher parapet has a much more elaborate cornice, and then we simplified the cornice on the lower parapet. So there definitely is that prominence on the high parapet, and then the lower parapet is much more subservient. And on the next page, we've got some renderings of that.
And pardon my interruption. If I'm sorry, the sound quality is just a little low.
Okay.
Christine, do you mind just speaking up just a little bit more in case others are having difficulties? Thank you.
Sure, and I'll pull my mic in a little bit too.
That's great.
So here's the two renderings we have of the exterior. And then we've got the sections too through the site showing how it is that the new mechanical unit on the roof will be visible from the low parapet. So the mechanical unit is that little white box there, and the site slopes up from the front of the store towards State Street. So if you're standing at the far end of the parking lot near State Street, there is a good chance that you will see that mechanical unit. So we went ahead and put in a mechanical screen there.
Okay.
And then moving on to the next page, I believe we have some sections, wall sections to the parapets, some details of the cornices, details of the parapet construction, the railings. Once again, we are trying as much as possible to match the specs of what's existing at Gelson. And the next page, these are some photos of what's out there. One of the requests was to take photos of the Gelson's rooftop from Las Positas Road, just to see what was visible in terms of rooftop equipment. And on the bottom left photo, I think that best shows the existing mechanical screening that's up there.
It's actually very tidy up there.
Yeah. So it's a steel frame with wood slats that are painted. That's the construction of that screen. So we'll be trying to match that for our new wood step unit.
All right. Is that your presentation then?
Yes, that wraps it up.
All right, thank you very much. With that, we will open this to any comments from the public on this item.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I would just ask anyone who wishes to speak on this item to please raise your hand using the hand icon, and I will call on you, and you will have 2 minutes to speak. And I do not see anyone who's raised their hand at this time. And I would ask Matthew if we received any written comment.
Mr. Vice Chair, we did not receive any written comment about this item.
Thank you. With that, we will close public comment and bring the rest of the board back on visual. And Jacinta, can you turn off your video so we have room for our members? Thank you. Can you turn off your video? Thank you. All right, so we will go to questions. First, starting with Leon.
I have no questions.
All right, Dennis?
No questions.
David?
None for me either.
Bob?
Yes, question. And I may have missed, I obviously missed this the first time around, but currently there is planting on the facade of the building that's being remodeled. There is a nice blue skyflower vine over the window, and I'm really sorry to see that go. I'm wondering whether the applicant has been able or can find any room for an in-ground planter along the face of this improvement so that we can continue to have some landscaping.
Mm-hmm. That was not something that we had planned for, but it's definitely something we can look into adding.
Thank you. That's no further questions.
Yeah, thank you, Bob. On that same, so my questions, I didn't, in regards to that mature plant, I think you can see those nice vines and so forth on the elevations. Is there, as in an alternative to providing new planting, you need to go to the photos. Not the photo sims, but the photos. Does the applicant need those canopies? It's the very upper right hand, upper right. Those are in upper right. You know, they're manicured a little too much, but they are pretty nice vines. Is there an opportunity just to have the canopy over the entry, or is it functionally desirable? And to the rest of the board, is it more important aesthetically to have this continuous number of canopies across the entry here? So first let me ask the applicant whether it would be a problem to maintain these and these to remain.
I don't think it's a problem to maintain them. I know that the clients did want the awnings over, especially the seating area, to help provide shade for anyone sitting in that area. And, you know, in terms of the plantings, you know, I personally don't have any objection to them, but I think the idea here was very much to match the design aesthetic of the Gelson store, and that side of the building does not have any plants.
I get it. Okay.
But but I can see, that these are really nice plants. And so I get the desire to keep them too. I understand that.
Okay, very good. We'll deal with that in our comments for the rest to see how the rest of the board feels. Number two question is, what is your intention on permitting of the screening elements? You want us to permit them now or review and permit them during the interior improvement plans?
We'd want you to act on them now.
Okay, very good. Thank you. If we, in that case, your details between structural and architectural are inconsistent. So I would, it won't hold the project up, but your structural needs to reflect your architectural, and your architectural needs to deal with waterproofing as these wood elements, posts and back braces hit the roof. There's no indication of roofing details at those, so those need to be looked at, but it's an aesthetic thing, so we'll hold up. Question the patients. If we go to, I think it's the second sheet with the plan, first of all.
Let's see, the third sheet.
I think, yeah, that one. You have some working areas, some counters, and so forth up against the glass. And I'm concerned that, first of all, when I look at the drawing details, the solid sill of these windows is much lower than the counter. When I look at the actual photos, it's about level counter height. Are there going to be any problems with upper cabinets and junk getting along that, what I assume would be clear windows, or are you frosting those windows?
Those are low cabinets. I think they come out to about 36 inches. We did not have any plans to frost them. Obviously, the backside of the cabinets would be finished, but we look to you guys for any recommendations on what you would like to see for the treatment of the lower portion of those windows.
Well, if we go to the photographs. And again, the upper right-hand corner, it looks like the solid sill is just at counter height. Is that correct?
I do not know the exact measurements of that, but it'd be close. There is a chance our fixtures or our cabinets might peek out over that.
Okay. Let's see. I think those are, do your plan, I didn't review them, but do your plans indicate that the signage that you're showing on the front of the building is not under this permit?
I do not have that noted, but we will be pursuing that under a separate permit.
Okay, these plans will need to say that it's not under this permit. All right, those are my questions. So we'll go to comments. Leon?
I don't have comments.
Right, Dennis?
No comments, Chair.
David?
In general, I think it's a nice project. I think they've done some responded to our comments, and I think it looks good to me.
Okay, thank you, David. Bob?
I agree. This is a nice project. I think we really need to reintroduce some landscaping. Excuse me. Either preserve the existing or provide provide locations. Maybe it's simply the series of large potted plants with vertical character that might get to, let's say, 8 feet, so that we've got some landscape relief along the face of the building. Thank you.
All right, and then I have 2 straw vote items. I think that would aesthetically be acceptable to have the 2 new awnings on the one awning over the opening to the left of the entry as facing the elevation, the entry canopy, and then dropping back to maintain the existing vine. Would that be acceptable or a weak design? Leon, a raise of hands?
Could you repeat that, Chair 6?
Yeah, I think
Okay,
I need to understand better.
Okay.
Yeah. Could we maybe look at page 6? I think that has the renderings on it. That was best.
Okay,
Would
thank you.
help us with some visuals.
All right, so we would, so there's 4 canopies, awnings on the new part of this project. The 2 to the right would be dropped in order to save the vine. The other 2 would remain. Is that a acceptable solution? Leon?
Well, I have a problem with how they're trimmed, how the vines are trimmed. It doesn't seem to me that it adds the element of landscaping that we might want. So I almost, I prefer the awnings.
Okay, very good. Dennis?
I'm sort of neutral on the vote. I could go either way. The awnings do look fine to me as a continuous item across the facade.
All right, so you're neutral.
Neutral, yes.
David?
Yeah, I would favor retaining the awnings, and then, as Bob suggested, maybe some pots with some vertical plant elements in it. I think that would be fine.
And Bob?
Yeah, Leon makes a good point, as did you, Richard. These vines are not really maintained the way they ought to be in order to be as attractive as we'd like.
Okay.
So I think we just need to get some vertical landscaping in there somewhere, and we can lose the vines.
Okay. And second of all, I'm concerned with seeing the backside of these working stations through the glass. Is there a what do the board members think about providing frosted glass up to like a 5 feet 5 foot line? Leon?
Again, I'm having trouble with the frosted glass. I'd rather see the solution be for the backside of the cabinet somehow.
I get it. Okay. So that would have to be part of the interior plan approval, I guess. Dennis?
I think that's a fine suggestion, Chair 6.
All right, thank you. Oh, what? Which one?
Frosted glass.
I get it. Okay, thank you, David.
Yeah, I wouldn't be opposed to frosted glass.
All right, Bob.
if by frosted glass you mean it's going to be a light color, I don't like that idea. I think the glass ought to appear dark and glossy on the outside, so that it's got the appearance of a transparent window from a short distance.
Great idea.
Pardon me?
Great idea. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so with that all visited, would anybody like to make a motion?
Pardon my interruption, Mr. Chair. I know that the applicant wanted to get your attention. Steve, if you're there, if you wanted to ask the attention of the chair.
I apologize. I don't have anything specific. I just heard I was muted and I wanted to get unmuted in case I wanted to chime in. I don't have anything specific at this time. Sorry.
I know one question that we need to ask the applicant. Would it be acceptable to the applicant to come back a review after final with the choice and location and number of potted plants to offset the loss of the bigger vines?
I guess I would ask, this is C4 with Suzanne Ellis Planning and Permitting. I guess I would ask staff, which is logistically, lack of a better word, easier to do review after final or come back on consent and have you final it? I would just ask that if staff could opine on that.
I think I meant come back on consent.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. If we'd rather come back on consent than come back full board for sure. And it seems like that would be an appropriate item for consent if we could come back and show you some locations for some pots.
Okay, so it sounds like the applicant is okay with that.
Oh, I want to ask, can I have Jacinta chime in and see what she thinks about that too?
Yes, I'm fine with that.
Very good. Is anybody now prepared for a motion? Leon?
I haven't made one of these yet. I might as well jump in, be my first one. I move that.
First of all, be positive. Compliment the applicant.
The board has reviewed the project and is in agreement that this is an appropriate design and wishes to move it to project design and final approval with a couple of I think we wanted to add some provisions in there and to bring it back to consent. So I need help with those provisions we asked for. And I think, Richard, you had one.
Okay, an indefinite continuance to consent in order for the applicant to provide a number, type of potted plants to replace the loss of the vines, that the potted plants the pot shall be specified, the plants and the number of plants, and I think Bob would have an interior reservoir in the potted plant container.
That's not a bad idea.
All right.
Good. Are there others?
I would add that at least some of the plants need to achieve a total height, including the pots, of 8 feet.
Are there others?
Then we also had to add to the back of the glass a dark color, black or pewter dark pewter film on the windows directly in front of the working stations inside.
If there aren't others, I'll then read the compatibility criteria. The project is in compliance with the city charter and municipal code. It's consistent with the design guidelines. The project fully complies with the applicable city charter and municipal code requirements. And the design is consistent with the design guidelines applicable to the location of the project within the city. The project is compatible with the architectural character of the city and the neighborhood. The design is compatible with the architectural qualities and characteristics which are distinctive of Santa Barbara and of the particular neighborhood surrounding the project. The project has appropriate size, mass, bulk, height, and scale, and it is appropriate for its location. It's sensitive to adjacent landmarks and historical resources. We know of no historic resources or landmarks in this location. The project is sensitive to adjacent federal, state, and city landmarks and designated historic resources. The public views of the ocean and mountains are not affected in this case, and the use of open space and landscaping is appropriate for the project.
All right, thank you.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, and under discussion, I think that we need to say that the project complies with the Upper State Street design guidelines and the outdoor lighting design guidelines.
I add that to my motion.
You did?
I will, and
Okay.
if necessary, I'll read it. I'll read it if that's what's necessary.
No, just say that you approve that addition.
I do approve that addition.
Seconded, the seconder?
I don't know. Okay. Sure.
So we finally have a motion on the floor.
Okay, this is Mary, Commission Secretary. I will take the roll call vote. Vice Chair 6.
Aye.
Board Member Black.
Aye.
Board Member Cunningham.
Aye.
Board Member Olson.
Aye.
And Board Member Whalen.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you, applicant. A nice design.
Yes.
Okay, we'll move on.
Chair 6.
Thank you.
I'm going to be leaving the meeting now.
Okay, I understand, Bob. Have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye. Item number 3. 103 South Calat Cesar Chavez, review after final approval. Well, I don't know what slide 1/2 means, but we'll move on. Proposal for a new 104 space parking lot, a carport structure supporting photovoltaic panels over 8 parking spaces and landscaping. The project would provide valet parking for the proposed hotel on the adjacent site to the south at 433 East Cabrillo Boulevard and replaces the prior approved project for a back of house hotel operations building and smaller valet parking lot. The habitat restoration of El Estero drain on the site has been completed. The project requires a waiver for an alternate parking lot landscaping design, ... Is that the end of the description?
No,
That is, Mr. Vice Chair, that is how it appears on the agenda.
Okay, so the ... is the end. So is the applicant here?
Yes, hello. Suzanne
Hello.
Ellen.
Suzanne, you don't look like Holly.
Also,
Yeah, I don't know why that happens. I did register.
Okay.
So if you want to just clarify for the public, Suzanne, you are more than welcome to click on the name Holly Garson in the attendee list and edit it really quick. But I think it'll just be helpful at least to verbally and say who you are. Thank you.
Sure. So this is Suzanne Elledge Planning and Permitting Services. And as soon as I get done speaking, I will make that change. I think that Holly was also identified as a presenter because if the meeting were to go past 6 o'clock, I have another meeting to attend. So Holly would take over at that point. Holly Garson, who is an assistant planner with our office. So we were before you back in April 20th. And Mr. Chair, would you like to read those minutes or would you like us to as we go through the presentation?
Whatever, it would probably, Suzanne, be more efficient to go through the structure of the
Mr.
last
Chair, if I
comments.
may.
Yes.
Sorry, Mr. Vice Chair. If I may, this is, there we go. So this project is coming before you as a review after final because it's being processed under a PLN that already received final approval from you all. At that time, they were proposing a non-residential building. They have returned for what I believe is a parking lot and solar array that needs to go to the Planning Commission for a substantial conformance determination. We do have the planner, Tony Bauman, in the audience, so I'm going to invite him to explain the rest to you. But I just wanted to let you guys know that this is going to PC after Q.
Thank you. So, Susan, or?
Sure. Let me just jump in and then Tony can add whatever he needs to add. So we came to you on the 20th of April and we will cover your comments in our presentation. We were supposed to come back a couple of weeks later, but in the interim, we were approached by Public Works about the possibility of relocating the access into the parking lot from the curb cut, the existing curb cut where we were proposing it, which is sort of central to the site, to the more northerly existing curb cut. And so we worked with Public Works for a while to determine if that was feasible, how it might change public improvements and so forth, and ultimately decided that it was superior and helped us to address some of the concerns that your board expressed last time. We think that it favorably reduces views into the site instead of being, you know, where it was located kind of centrally. Its different location minimizes views into the site, so it helps with the screening. And we'll go over that in our presentation. So I just wanted you to be aware of that. That was why we took a few more weeks to come back to you. And then finally, we are headed towards the Planning Commission, who advises the Community Development Director on, provides comments to the Community Development Director as to whether the SCD, you know, if they have comments about the proposal, they advise the Community Development Director. But in order to get to Planning Commission, we do need favorable comments by you on this component of the project. So I'm just making a request that should you feel favorably about the project at the end of this review, even if there are some minor revisions or tweaks, we would like to know at the end today if we are okay to go on to Planning Commission. Okay, right. So I will turn off my camera and go away, and I believe that Kirk Ellis will take it from here.
Before Kirk starts, Tony, do you have anything before we have a full presentation?
Yes, hello, Mr. Six and ABR members. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, yep. Good. Sorry, I arrived a little bit late. Ms. Elledge described the project and the status of it perfectly, I think. I would just add to that when the ABR is ready to make comments, if the comments could be expressed in the context of the project compatibility criteria, that would be helpful. Other than that, I don't think I have anything to add, but I'll be right here if you have any questions.
Okay, thank you, Tony. Kirk, you're on.
Okay, good afternoon to the board. Good afternoon. As Suzanne just said, our interim break was a good break. It was a good, smart study. If you could actually advance the PDF, please, to, I think it's gonna be page number 3. I'm gonna double check on that for you. Yeah, page number 3 is really where the lion's share of what we want to talk about. So page 2, we did update the PV panel type, just the manufacturer. But here's the main thing. So on page 3 here, we're showing the reconfigured site layout. We heard you clearly before. One of the comments was to study adjusting the layout, have an alternative. In doing this, as Suzanne said, it's a win-win. We now have the driveway inlet located further north along Calle Cesar Chavez. That comes in, we have a longer throat now. With the landscaping on both sides of that, it allows better screening. And now the parking stalls are still the same size as before, 8x16s for valet parking only. We have also revised the photovoltaic carports. With this new configuration, we were able to get planting, as you'll see from Arcadia in just a few minutes here in their plans. But we now have 3 different array sections. Instead of having one long section that we had before, we've chosen to go with 3 separate array carports. This makes for lighter structure. It's simpler, visually lighter. So we have different pieces. They all relate. They have the same pitch angle, of course, in the PV panel. So it creates kind of a nice rhythm along that flat backdrop of the building that's just behind us to the northwest, which of course has no windows. So we feel that's a really good add. Also to break that scale and mass down a little bit. This is basically the same PV, basically the same PV panel area as we had presented last time. If you could pan back out, please, to the overall site plan, whoever's controlling, thank you very much. What this allows us to do then is keep the PV panels to the northwest edge of the site. The switchgear transformer is now on the east side, almost halfway from north to south. There's a small pad that's out there. And we're able to screen that with landscaping, as you'll see again from Arcadia, the landscape architect. This parking count here is 104 stalls, the same parking count we had before. I believe from the notes from city staff's assessment, I think there was maybe not a complete understanding or clear communication on our part for the parking striping for all stars. There are 104 stalls on here. The easternmost section near the throat is actually 4 stalls deep for the last 3 stalls. So this does represent 104 stalls here, valet parking only. Having said that, if you go to the next page, please, of the PDF. Thank you. So as I just said, in section, the section on the right-hand side of the page there, section number 3, or elevation 3, you can see the true orthogonal elevation of the 3 different carport sections. Same pitch angle, same framing. So again, it creates that rhythm, very simple. You can now pan to the left, please, to detail number 5. Thanks. This is a simple section through there holding up the PV panels. This manufacturer, the PV panels are just slightly larger than what we had shown before. So we've accommodated for the actual size of the PV panels. And we were asked to look at a detail. If you could pan up, please, to detail number 6. Yeah, so what we looked at is with this tube steel section frame, which is a welded moment frame, getting a simple fascia step so that if you can come back down now to 5, you can see that step in the outside edge. Pan back over to 3 now, please. Yeah, you're doing great. So with this simple architecture of the buildings behind us, with this simple architecture of these carport, we're seeing the exposed metal. We were encouraged to look at a different transition we have without it being too complicated. This is a fascia plate, it's brake metal. It'll be pre-finished to match the same color as the tube steel itself. It does cover the outer edge of the PV panels, but still gives us enough room for maintenance, cleaning, etc. So it's the smartest way we could get something on that looks a little bit better, covers that edge, but we can still get our fingers in there to maintain, pull out a panel if need be. The heights are listed there, as you can see, which is plenty of height on this site. It works with our trees. Also, if you can pan out now to the whole sheet, I'll take you to the bottom of the sheet. And that's just our longitudinal elevation, basically seeing the 3 different arrays lined up. You can see it's the same height, same datum. So again, we have that nice rhythm that carries across the site. If you could go to the next sheet, please.
And again, we've updated our SketchUp models. It's a simple model. I think in the upper right-hand corner, that's probably one of the ones that's of the most interest. Shows the relationship to the adjacent building, which again has no fenestration on it. When you see the landscaping plan is actually a pretty full plan. So these will be 3 small modules that have a good module to them regulation. Now, if you go just to the left, upper left-hand corner, you're on the right one there. Yeah, so this is not what you would see as you're driving in. This is from the street sidewalk looking across the drive lane. And again, that scale now has just this nice rhythm to it. So we feel that moving our inlet, the driveway, was actually a win-win because it helped us then to break down the scale of these PV panel carports. If you could pan back out to the whole sheet, please. Thank you. And then the lower right-hand view that's there, just looking, no one would ever see it from this angle, a bird would, but you get a chance to see how those 3 different arrays line up on the site. And again, with our driveway now to the far north end of our site, we're going to get landscaping along that edge of Calle Cesar Chavez and also along the buildings to the northwest. So this is taking care of what we had heard back from the board previously to look at alternative layout. Site sections for sight lines, we'll show you that next with landscaping. The restoration plan, we'll show you that next in landscaping. The overhang and pitch of the PV panels. This is the actual sizing based on the photovoltaic manufacturer and supplier. And then the fence and the ground equipment, we actually have a landscape solution for how to screen that off now, which we think is a better solution in any ways. So with that, we can go to the next page here, please. And we'll get into the landscape. I know Lori messaged me. I don't know if she's in yet. She was having a challenge with her microphone, I think, but hopefully Lori from Arcadia is in and she can speak to the landscape plan.
Pardon my interruption. I've just promoted Lori Romano. And Lori, if I just sent you a webcam request, if you're able to share your webcam and test your audio. Okay, webcam, and then that's great. And we can hear you. So whenever you're ready. Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. Lori Romano here with Arcadia Studio. As Kirk was describing, the break we took was beneficial, and I think the site plan is greatly improved. And with your comments to restudy the overall parking layout, I think worked to our benefit as well. So instead of driving and having the driveway in the center of the site, which when you drive by and you looked in, you'd see just the parking lot. Now you just see a glimpse of the driveway, and then there's some low canopy trees so as not to screen the PV panels. That will help, provide some breakup between the massing of our parking lot and the western building. If you can zoom into that kind of north, zoom into the green area of the proposed landscape plan. Okay, so we start off with some palm trees as an entry to our site. If you go along Calle Cesar Chavez, you'll see the similar planting palette, although I've put in a 4 to 5 to 6 foot hedge of native varietals along the parking so you don't see any cars. Then we have the oak trees, then we'll have not mounds, but we'll have grasses and some other hardy shrubs, and then perhaps some strap-like plants like flax or something else. We have the relocated transformer in the center of the site along Calle Cesar Chavez, if you see that, yes. And that's surrounded by the native varietals such as Rhamnus Mount San Bruno or Rhamnus Eve Case. Those are the oak trees. And then we have the 2 street trees that are going to be replaced because they're all kind of struggling right now. That's the Metrosideros New Zealand Christmas tree. So, and then we'll show the sections on the next page, but let me go through the landscape real quick. We were able to, then on the southern border, we were able to push the parking lot up enough where we could get another whole layer of screening on the southern border with, I chose grasses this time because this is adjacent to the restoration area, and all the trees along the parking are sycamores, which is fitting because they have sycamores across on the in the restoration area. Then wrapping around to the west side, we have another little grouping of sycamores, then 3 oaks, and then the rest of the low canopy trees with a hedgerow that's going to be, it's a hedge, but it's going to be literally a hedge 8 to 10 feet tall, as whatever we feel is appropriate. But again,
something to screen the building, but not prevent the PV from doing what they need, you know, getting the sun that they need. Okay, so do you have any questions on the revised landscape plan? Because then we could go, then I could go just to the yellow, purple color and that, and describe the restoration area. Okay, so moving on to the restoration area. So as you can see below our green area on the southern property line, starts with yellow, and that's, if we go over, if you pan over to the left and enlarge the plant legend, zoom in on that even more, the legend, you'll see the color coded, you'll see the purple, green, and yellow. And that describes the different coastal communities and what was planted there. So I don't see David Black as a participant today, but one of his questions were, how big are those trees? And all the trees were put in at 1 gallon. So, and that's what was described by the biologist who worked on our team. We literally just drafted her plan up. So, you know, this is approved through the city. It's actually already installed and growing very well. So we've got the emergent wetlands, we have the riparian, and we have the upland coastal scrub, which is the yellow. Okay, you can pan out again. And as you can see, the parking lot is bordered by the easternmost edge of El Estero. Then the match line over on the left-hand side picks up below, and then it goes all the way along, and it ends, you know, however many feet beyond the project. But this is basically, it's called the Panhandle, but this is basically the north parcel lot. So we could go to the next page. And on here we have these sections. David Black was also interested in section BB, which is the actually already installed wetlands landscape. And I basically did a little sketch showing, here are the sycamore trees, here are our sycamore trees, here are our grasses, and then these are the different shrubs. In the bioswale and in the El Estero, there's juncus, which is shown, you know, by the reed type grasses. And then he's got heteromelies, or he doesn't, we have heteromelies and other native varietals, grasses and shrubs. And so this section line is depicted from the topo BB, which was on the previous site plan. And then if you pan down to the photos, right below the section. So this shows you the train tracks looking due west. Then it shows kind of the El Estero is the second picture and how well it's grown in. And then the third picture shows what's adjacent to the parking lot right now, but we will have another layer of shrub and trees that will clean up that edge of the restoration area. Then let's see, we can go over to the left and look at section AA. David also would have wanted to see a section between Calle Cesar Chavez and the parking area. And so you can see the car parked under A. Then we've got the native varietal, then some sort of flax, the existing or the new, that's an oak tree. And then you don't see the metrosideros because that's way in the back. And then there's some plantings in the median, which are basically represented by some agaves and different plants that will be planted in there. Let's see, let's go down to the pictures for AA. And that shows the existing screening today, what you see when you're standing on the bridge at the railroad tracks. And you can see what is already screened from the building. So you won't see the cars if you're right there, but you know, as you're walking along, you see various glimpses, but I feel that the screening from a person walking along Calle Cesar Chavez North or a car driving south, this parking lot is going to be pretty well screened. And then we can go down to the rest of the pictures on this page. And it just shows more sections through the existing planting on the site right now. Let's see. Okay, And the third page is just our plant palette, and was really not in question, but it gives some ideas of some of the landscape material we're planning on using.
All right, thank you very much. Does that end your presentation, Kirk and Lori?
Yes.
Yeah, this is Kirk. The following sheets in the set were the civils sheets just to back up all the information, the survey, the floodplain. I can tell you right now that the switchgear transformer, all out of the floodplain, no issues with that. Happy to answer any questions to that, but that wasn't necessarily going to be a part of the comments you made before and how we're coming back with that. So I think that does conclude the changes we heard from you last time, the modifications we've made to have this be a better plan, a better design than last time.
Okay, thank you very much. With that, I will pass it to open up the meeting to public comment. Is there anybody from the public who wishes to speak on this item?
Thank you, Mr. Six. So again, if you wish to speak on this item, please raise your hand using the hand icon and I'll call on you and you'll have 2 minutes to speak. I see Anna Marie Gott. I'm going to unmute you. I'm just going to request for everyone else, could you please mute yourself? If I could ask the applicants to mute yourself so we don't pick up any background noise and any board members. Anna Marie Gott, I've just unmuted you, and whenever you're ready, you have 2 minutes. Thank you.
Good afternoon, board members. The first thing I want to remind you is that you need a quorum of 4 individuals that have reviewed all of the other meetings online, as well as obviously attending this meeting to be able to take a vote. The next thing I want to remind you is to actually look at the site dimensions and the parking lot dimensions for each of those parking spaces. You'll note that I actually accounted for some spaces having 4 parking spaces, and really they're not long enough for that. So you can only fit 91 parking places actually in this lot, and we're saying that there's 104 of them. So if you just did the math, you'd be able to figure that out, but I did do that math for you. Regarding this particular project, where's the site lighting? Because outdoor lighting would absolutely be required if not you're expecting people to use flashlights in the middle of the night to find vehicles. But more importantly than all of this is the very first public notice for this particular project never included the waivers that were actually needed for the project, the substantial conformance determination. It also is not talking about outdoor lighting. And again, I would just urge you to actually have someone from transportation show you on these plans right now exactly how it conforms, because you can't fit the number of parking places on it. But more importantly, this says it's going to replace another valet parking lot. That valet parking lot has 100 valet-only parking places and 50 overflow parking places. So there's a question about what is happening with this project, and I would urge you not to provide any comments to the Planning Commission positively until you have some more questions answered. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna Marie. So,
and Mr. Six, that's the last hand that I saw raised, and just would ask Matthew if we received any written comment.
We have not received, other than the written comment that you've received from Ms. Scott, who just spoke with the same, outlining the same issues. We have not received anything else.
Okay, thank you, Matthew. So with that, we'll close public comment and bring it back to the board for questions. So if the applicants can turn off their video so we have room on our screen for our regular guys. Thank you. So there's 4 of us, so we'll start questions with Dennis.
Sure. Just a question about why are the PV canopies sort of not regularly spaced, but irregularly spaced? What was the design intent there?
Mr. Wellen, if I could answer, this is Kirk Ellis from Gensler. I'll answer that for you. It all had to do with the relationship of the parking area with there's a drainage channel along that northwest configuration. And then if we put the columns right to the edge, the PV panels might extend over the property line or over the drainage and over the trees. So yes, you picked up there's not a regular alignment. That was to maximize the efficiency of the parking surface area, but also let the PV panels have enough room to breathe relative to the structure below them.
Thank you.
And thank you. Leon?
Yes. I would like to have the applicant address the issue of lighting again to review that for me.
Certainly, this is Kirk again with Gensler. Be happy to do that. So I think two considerations. One is we will be providing some low-level bollard lighting, but because this is a secured valet-only parking lot, there is no public parking. It'll be privately operated, privately insured, general public is not there. We are planning to have that operation be done without generating a lot of light and a lot of light pollution. So sensitive to the site, sensitive to the hotel, but also safe to maintain, it'll be done in that fashion.
Where would those bollards be?
They're going to be at the perimeter edge, not in the parking field themselves, but in the parking, the edge of the parking area, focusing in, but again, low-level bollards that only face into the site.
Thank you. That's all my question.
Okay, Leon. David?
I have a question about the waiver that's going to be asked for. Is that something that would be granted by our board or the planning commission or staff, or how is that going to work?
Are you asking about the parking lot landscape design waiver?
I am.
That would be granted by this board at the time. When this comes back, it will be agendized for revised project design approval. Currently, it's agendized for review after final because, as I said, this was something that was previously given final approval and has since revised its design.
So am I to understand
which
that?
Also is the reason why all of you are able to participate, because this will need a revised PDA with this new design.
So sort of carrying on, so am I to understand then that this parking lot layout, which does not conform to the city's design guidelines for parking lots, is the reason because it's a valet parking lot as opposed to one that would have public access? I'm just trying to understand why this would ever be deemed acceptable, given the fact that it's nowhere near what the design guidelines for the city parking lots would be. I'm troubled by that, and I want to know whether or not does the city have some guideline that applies specifically to valet parking that would, preempt conformance to the city guidelines?
So that's a good question. The zoning code lays out all of the requirements for parking lots that includes landscaping and any site walls and screening for automobiles. There is, however, at the end of all of those guidelines, sort of this caveat that says that the appropriate design review body can grant waivers from the requirements of that code. So in this case, because it's non-residential, you can waive all of the surrounding planters, you can waive any of the finger planters, island planters, anything that you see fit. So yes, this request does not meet that standard, and yes, the zoning code does allow that as long as this design board signs off on it.
Okay.
And Mr. Vice Chair, Board Member Black, may I address the board? Suzanne Elledge here again. I just wanted to also point out that yes, the point that it's not a parking lot that's used by the public, it's privately operated, is one point. The second point is that the way we are approaching this is to screen around the perimeter with landscaping to meet the intent of standard, the standard requirements. And also, I want to point out that in 2007, not the last SCD, but the project that was approved in 2007, there was also almost an equal number of spaces in an all valet lot that was approved in 2007, taking this same approach. And I just want you to know that background.
All right, thank you. Susan. David, is that your extent of questions?
I had one other sort of landscape related question. What sort of effort has been put forth for stormwater management? I mean, you have a rather sizable field of, I assume, non-permeable paving, and I'm just wondering where the drainage goes, and has that been accommodated?
Sure. Do you want me to answer?
Sure.
Yes, please.
Sure. This is Lori with Arcadia, Board Member Black. The whole southern bottom row of parking are permeable pavers. The site does drain to the south, where it's supposed to then go in, into the bioswale, which is what that's for, is for collecting, holding, and filtering water. And that's that purple line. If you go to the next page, the landscape plan, if you want, sorry. That one. You'll see the purple line, and the purple line then with the green, and then it goes to yellow. So yellow is the upland, the green and the purple are basically the bioswale.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, it's been carefully addressed by the civil engineer.
Those are no other questions.
Okay, very good. Thank you, David. My only question, well, first of all, for staff, the public brings up these questions of public notice and waivers and correct notifications. I assume that staff has reviewed all this and we're able to continue reviewing and passing this on to Planning Commission.
Chair, this is Tony Bauman.
Yeah.
Staff did review Ms. Scott's letter today, and the project didn't require a notice. There's no trigger for a notice. It is a project that's going to the Planning Commission, but it's only going to the Planning Commission for comments on this substantial conformance question. And the substantial conformance determination is a staff function. That determination will be made by the Community Development Director. So the Planning Commission hearing is just for their comments. Similarly, today we're asking for ABR comments. We're hoping to have the ABR comments to pass along to the Planning Commission, but I guess you could say the ABR comments also inform the Community Development Director on his decision of substantial conformance.
Okay, number two, Tony, are we to structure our comments on a per board member basis or make a motion?
I think they can be on a per board member basis.
Matthew?
We would want to, well, go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, sorry. I believe that there was wondering if in the case of courtesy reviews and pre-applications, we typically just run through each member and give comments. In this case, we would need it to be part of a formal motion.
Okay, thank you. Then back to the applicant. You mentioned that the plans before had a place and a marker or trellis over some ground mounted solar cells and so forth. Where is that located now, Kirk?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman Six. So in the current plan, the 3 photovoltaic arrays are on the core part off to the northwest side of the parcel. If you see the eastern edge facing to the sidewalk of Calle Cesar Chavez, about halfway down, thank you, yeah, just pan it, there you go. You see that gray rectangle? That's the switchgear actually. And so that is then heavily screened landscaping. Previously, it was exposed. We had that because it was at a different location on the site. It was exposed. We were proposing the fencing or trellising around that.
I'm sorry, I'm not, I noticed where the hand is now. I thought that's it?
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you.
Sure.
All right. I think that's my questions. So,
Chair Six.
oh, sorry. Yes. Go ahead.
One other question for Mr. Ellis. Was there any consideration to making a pedestrian connection? I envision these poor valets running up and down the driveway and going actually out of their way. So could you address that, please?
Sure, I'd be happy to. We didn't look exactly at the operational part of that. Usually valets are used to running in most cases, but not to be cruel. For security, we were trying not to have too many openings, around the site. I think operationally that could be considered if that's the wishes of the board, but we had tried to have that be one centralized control location for in and out.
Good question, Dennis. I can foresee that there'll be a dirt path and a shortcut through this. I don't know whether I think that. Yeah, well, that's comments. So, so we'll go with questions finished. We'll go, Dennis, first to you with comments.
Sure, then I'll follow up on that. I do think that it's worth considering or even recommending that a pedestrian connection be made to reduce the amount of pedestrian traffic up and down the driveway. That being said, I think this is an infinitely better improvement or iteration in moving the driveway and screening the lot from the public. And on that point, I might suggest that a little more planting be added, an expanded planter between the driveway and that first row of parking to, yes, exactly, to really totally and provide as much landscape screening as possible when viewed from the street. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. Leon?
Yes, I think this is a remarkable improvement, and I'm quite happy to see it. I think Mr. Whalen's comments both are relevant. One is the access for staff. Perhaps pedestrians isn't quite the right word there, but and the second one is that landscaping on that first row of parking. It seems like that could be improved, and I'd like to see that also. But I wouldn't want to take away from the fact that I think this is a very much improved project, and I like it.
Okay, thank you, David.
Yeah, I would agree. It's much improved. I am sort of troubled by the notion of this much parking without benefit of shade canopies throughout, which is what we're used to in this town. And I have to imagine that this is pretty much going to set a precedent. I can't think of any other parking lot in this area that looks like this or will look like this. So, but I think they've done an adequate job as far as providing screening. I'm pretty confident that that part of it will work out. But those are my only comments. Yeah.
All right, thank you, David. My comments are that yes, it's indeed a 100% improved plan. David, I think we just reviewed a storage yard facility on, I think it was Nopal. Nopal.
Yeah, you're right.
that was by Marburg, and it was completely screened, and it was a bare area. I think this is kind of similar. This is a working, a no public thing, and I'd rather see a good job of soft landscaping rather than screening around it. So I don't think that we need to have interior planters in this, and it's a working yard. I do concur with Dennis and now Leon on the widening. I just wondered if there was any creative way, and maybe it reverts to a block wall back. It would be nice to have a double layer of screening as you're looking down that driveway. Even though it's vastly improved and much more less impact, it would be nice to, for instance, if the driveway was not parallel with the solar panels, but parallel with the sidewalk, so you'd have kind of a teardrop shape to give a wider planting area at the down sheet portions of those two fingers. Is a subtle comment, but just as a suggestion. So that's the last of the comments. I will make a motion to indefinite indefinite continuation to the Planning Commission, with the board strongly supports the organization of the site design, minimizing the public view into the valet, into the parking lot. It appreciates the well thought out and adequate plantings that are proposed on the perimeters. The design of the photovoltaic structures are handsome and simple and relate in compatibility to the simple structure to the north. And the board understands that the only lighting will be low bollards because of the nature of the use, and appreciate that there won't be any issues with outdoor lighting. And one suggestion that the board has is the two suggestions that the board have, underlined suggestions, is to create a pathway for the valets to shortcut into the center of the parking lot from the south. And second suggestion is to study ways to increase either the center median or the dividing line between the first street side solar panel and the drive, in order to get a second layer of planting to complete the screening views from the mouth of the entry. Does that, I think that's the end of my motion, and that it's a very well thought out plan and appropriate to its use.
Second.
Oh, Mr. Vice Chair, we do need the project compatibility criteria to be read into the motion as well as it goes to PC so that they have an idea of what they're looking at.
Okay, Dennis, before you second it, then the board finds that this project is successful in making the compatibility criteria. As far as the board understands, there are no, that the project complies with all city charter and municipal codes, that the project is consistent with the guidelines applicable to this location, given guidelines applicable to this location. 2, it's compatible with the architectural character of the city and the neighborhood, given that the neighborhood has a lot of similar well-landscaped areas, and the only architectural structures are simple, straightforward, and compatible with the simple, straightforward architecture to the north. 3, the architecture and landscaping is of appropriate size, mass, bulk, and scale, as there is no significant structures proposed. There is, as far as the board is aware, there are no adjacent landmarks or historic resources that are affected by this project. Also, there are no public views. Number 5, there are no public views of the ocean or mountains that are affected by this project. And number 6, the open and landscaping is very appropriate, as thought has been given to significant screening landscaping at all appropriate areas. Now we can have a second.
Second.
That was Leon?
Yes.
Okay, Leon seconds. Is there any further discussion to that motion? Hearing no one, we have a motion on the floor, Mary.
All right, this is Mary, Commission Secretary. I will take the roll call vote. Vice Chair 6.
Aye.
Board Member Black.
Aye.
Board Member Olson.
Aye.
And Board Member Whalen.
Aye.
Okay, so motion passes. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And that being the last of the agenda, I will formally close the Architectural Review Board for June 15th. Thank you, everyone, for participating.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair, and thank you for the thoughtful comments. I appreciate those. Those were great.
All right. Thank you.